Hey everyone, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Justin, and today is going to be one of the last times that we're going to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs potentially moving one of their big four core forwards. Now, Sheldon Keefe, Kyle Dubas, Brendan Shanahan, they all came out and spoke to the media after that Game 7 loss in Round 1 to Montreal, and they all had the same sentiments that we're going to keep the core together for next year. Now, of course, some of that could just be telling the media what they want to hear and relaying those sentiments until a real offer comes around, or they could mean it. But for myself, I do believe we should explore moving one of these four players. If ultimately that doesn't happen and management is telling the truth that they plan on keeping this core together, I don't want to consistently keep messaging that we should move on from a player when it's ultimately not going to happen. I am capable of buying into the fact that this team can win with this core four, but I would give them one more year. 1 year to prove it. Every year we waste going out in the first round or not making the playoffs is another year spent on these big contracts, another year closer that they get closer to free agency where they could command more money or leave the team and we get nothing in return. So we need to start taking advantage of these contracts and these players, or possibly explore moving them, as I'm going to explain today. Now, obviously, a lot of the conversation is around William Nylander and Mitch Marner right now. Austin Matthews, John Tavares, you're not moving either of those. They're centers, they're elite, they're staying on this team. William Nylander performed really well, and as I think, Mitch Marner is not movable because he's not a good player. In fact, he's the opposite. He is quite an elite player. He's movable because of that contract. I mean, with an $11 million or borderline $11 million player on the wing, you expect him to be probably one of the best wingers, if not the best winger in the entire NHL. And he hasn't lived up to that expectation in the playoffs in the last 3 years or in his career so far. And although he has great numbers in the regular season, I just think that the team could be built better with that money dispersed elsewhere in the lineup. William Nylander, you're not moving because you're not getting a better player and you're not saving much money if you move him. If you were to get two players in exchange for William Nylander's $7 million contract, you're looking at two $3.5 million players. That's about the likes of an Alex Kerfoot, who is that really much of a difference maker in a team if you have two of those players? Maybe, maybe not. If you move $11 million of Mitch Marner, the concept again is not thinking you're going to get a better player in return of Mitch Marner. It's thinking you're going to get two solid pieces in your lineup for about $5 to $6 million each that will make a significant difference on the way your team performs. And we're going to explore some different situations in the NHL where we see that more prevalent in Stanley Cup winning or contending teams. I took a look on Cap Friendly earlier today as a bit of a case study to see how other teams in the NHL are dispersed. Most of the teams that I think are well balanced and most of the teams that have had recent success in the playoffs. And so I looked at 6 different teams here at how many players they have in the $4 to $6 million range. I think that is the perfect range to describe a player that is a solid contributor, a really strong player, a stud, someone that can step up in the lineup or play anywhere you want them to, but ultimately not a superstar. And that's also the range that a Mitch Marner's contract could go to 2 of those players. And so I have 6 teams written down here. Vegas, they have 4 players in that $4 to $6 million range. Carlson, Smith, Marchessault, and Tuck. Tampa Bay Lightning, 5 players in that range. Palat, Gord, Johnson, Cirelli, and Killorn, who's one of the leaders in scoring in this Stanley Cup playoffs so far. Colorado, who is my pick to win the Stanley Cup this year. Landeskog, Saad, Burakovsky, and Nazem Kadri. That's 4 people on their roster. St. Louis, who won just 2 years ago. 4 players again, Jaden Schwartz, Bozak, Hoffman, and Perron. The Islanders, one of the most well-rounded teams in the NHL right now, and a team that's able to shut down the Bruins as we're seeing. They have 4 people as well. Nelson, Bailey, Pajot, and Eberle. And lastly, what I think is one of the most well-rounded teams in the NHL, they're out now, but the Carolina Hurricanes, they have 4 people as well. Stahl, Teravainen, Niederreiter, and a player like Trocheck who can really step up and perform at an excellent goal-scoring clip. Keeping in mind these are forward statistics, I think that's what we're looking at as far as well-rounding our offensive group. How many do the Toronto Maple Leafs have? 0. We have no forwards in that $4 to $6 million range. we have the likes of John Tavares, Austin Matthews, and Mitch Marner making over $10 million. And then beyond that and William Nylander, you're going down to Alex Kerfoot at 3.5. To me, that's too big of a gap, and it shows how top-heavy the Leafs offense is. And when you get an injury like John Tavares had, or if you face a team that's able to shut down your two best players like Matthews and Marner, you've got no secondary effort, no secondary scoring, and very little you can do in making a push. Whereas these teams that I listed here, those offensive groups have steadiness down their lineup, and most of these guys are some of the best guys on their teams. And I'm not saying to go out and get any of these players, but I am saying that if you were to look at Mitch Marner's contract and distribute it on any two of the players that I named here, the Toronto Maple Leafs are a stronger team than they are today. You're not weaker with the loss of Mitch Marner. Mitch Marner is by far the best player out of any of these that I listed. He's number one up there, and any of these teams would die to have Mitch Marner. But the way you build a team is around having more effort and depth around your lineup and players that are able to step in those roles. And I just think if you were able to make a deal for two of these players, any two, for Mitch Marner, I think that's a better use of your cap, and you would still have some money left over from that $10.9 million. So again, that's just my personal opinion. I think that we should absolutely be exploring Mitch Marner's deal and moving it this offseason. Again, if it doesn't happen, I love Mitch Marner. He's my favorite player. I'd be happy to see him come back. I would have concerns. I still don't think that those contracts when they were signed were that big of a deal, considering that they were projecting the cap to go up by like $9 million by 2023, which would mean we could have the exact same contracts that we have now, plus afford an $8 million player for this upcoming offseason. But of course, a pandemic happened, and now we have a flat cap for the next 3 seasons. So in a flat cap world, can you make it succeed? The players themselves, absolutely. You can succeed with those floor players on your lineup, but can you succeed with those contracts? $40 million being locked up in those 4. I don't think you can. We'll see what Kyle Dubas has to say and what Kyle Dubas will do in this offseason. That's my opinion. What are yours? I'd love to hear it. I appreciate you watching this video. Please comment down below what you think should happen, whether you think we should go after a few more players to round out our team a little bit better, or if you like the way it's built now. Thanks for watching.